I'm quite keen to make a start for at 12 o'clock. So I'm just going to say welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining. And we're just going to get going with a karakia. So kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mia ngaro, ki runga ki tina o tātou, kia mahia, te huia ma kihi kihi, ki toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te araha, toi te reo Māori, ki tuturu, ki whakamaua, ki tina, hui e, tai ki e. So let the strength be with all of us, free our path from obstruction, find our power in our words and love and language, and move forward together. So I'm just going to hand over to Karinia Lee, our head of centre.
Tēnā koe, Kathryn. Mauri ora kia koutou katoa, he honore, he kororia ki te atua, he maungaronga ki te mata o te whenua. He whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, he whakahonore te ariki nui, te kuini nā wai hono i te pō, me te whare kāhui ariki. Rire, pai mai rire. E whakahamauma ki te honga mate, moi mai rā. Ki te honga ora, tēnā koutou katoa. E mihi ana ki a koe, Kathryn, no te karakia i tēnei rā, tēnā koe. Ki a koutou kua tau mai nei, no mai, haere mai, whakatau mai rā, ki tēnei hui. Tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon, everybody. Ko wai au. Ki te taha o tōku papa, he uri hou te tai waiahua, Waikato Tainui, Ngāti Hainamana, ki te taha o tōku mama, te rarawa ko te apuri, ko Scottish, ko Karinia Lee tōku ingoa, he kaihotu au e Centre for Social Impact. So yes, welcome here today, this afternoon, to this amazing session, to Pūaha Talks session. And to Pūaha Talks is a free program of workshops offered to the community sector by CSI, the Centre for Social Impact, through the support of Foundation North. We've presented on a wide range of topics, including facilitation, collaboration, evaluation, and wellbeing. And you can access the recordings of all the workshops on the CSI website. Michelle will hopefully post a link in the chat shortly. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to take part in a quick poll. Foundation North is supporting the series, and they are interested to see how many of their grantees are coming along to the workshops. Thank you all for doing that. Just a bit of housekeeping before I hand back to Kathryn and Robbie. Could you please keep your mics on mute, cameras on, if you feel comfortable to do so. We will have time for Q&A, but please use the chat for asking any questions. I'll now hand the rākau back to Kathryn and Robin to introduce today's session. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, Karinia. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, Robin and I are just going to quickly introduce ourselves. So I'll just start with a little bit about me. So, ko Kathryn, tōku ingoa. No Czech Republic me ingarangi o ko tipuna. No tamaki makaurau a hau. Ko kuatunu, tōku kāinga, e te rohi a iwi a Ngāti Hei. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm Kathryn. I'm originally from Auckland and I'm now living in Kuautunu, which is on the east coast of the Coromandel in the rohi of Ngāti Hei. My ancestry is half Czech and half English from my mother's father. My background is in community psychology and evaluation, and I've been an associate with the Centre for Social Impact for about 8 years. So I'll pass to Robbie.
Kia ora koutou, ko Robbie Hickman ahau, originally from Te Waipounamu, so special shout out to the Southerners that are online. I have to warn you, I have a nasty cold and I keep on having coughing outbreaks. So if I suddenly mute myself and a cup appears on the screen, it's me taking a sip of lemon, orange and ginger. So hopefully the cough will stay away.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So, kia ora, Robin. So let's get into it with our first slide. So, look, I'm just going to start before Robbie gets into talking about her about communicating your work. I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction as to why we're here on and talking about this subject. So, just a little bit of background to the capability development tools that we developed last year. Last year we invited community groups who had attended these Pūaha Talks to just give us a little bit of feedback about some of the issues that were important to them and that they're grappling with. And what we heard was things like funding sources, evaluation and impact, talking about tiriti and a journey on becoming a bicultural organisations, strategy development, community engagement, and more. And as a result of that, we developed these 3 capability development resources, which are all on our Te Pūaha website. So the funding guide is for organisations that are new and starting to look for grants and getting ready to apply for funding. We've also got the capability wheel, which is for larger not-for-profit organisations who are wanting to deepen and expand their practice. And then we've also got the Core Skills Toolkit. So this resource introduces those topics that the community groups that we spoke to last year said were important. So it's for new and small community groups who are setting out on their journey, or for experienced groups who are just wanting a refresh on some of these topics. And they're all skill areas that are important for creating strong organisations. So you'll see in the toolkit that if you go and look in the toolkit, some of you may have already seen this on our website, each topic has got its own page, and it's got an introduction, it's got a short introductory section about why it's important. It's got a set of questions that you can ask yourself when you're getting started, and it links to a set of relevant resources and templates. So these 3 resources that I've been talking about can either be thought of as a complementary sort of building block of resources, or they're standalone. So just going back to the purpose of this workshop, one of the topics in the Core Skills Toolkit is communicating your work. So it's quite general what we've got in the topic. So the purpose of these workshops were to be able to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the content. So this is the second workshop we've done. We did engaging with community engagement a couple of weeks ago. And we have workshops on the rest of the topics in the toolkit coming up over the next couple of months. So keep your eye out for those. So Robbie does a lot of work on communications, and is going to share some of the things that she has learnt and things that she's experienced over the years that she's been working on this area. So just a little bit about what we're going to be covering. We're going to be looking at objectives for your comms work, looking at some of the options for the types of communication channels you can use, and how to choose the right social media platform for your mahi and your organisation, thinking about different audiences and their needs, and then we're going to look at a few examples of different organisations and some of the social media that they've used to reach their audiences. And we're going to be encouraging you to have a bit of chat in the in the chat. Put up any questions that come to your mind as you're listening to Robbie speak. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Robbie.
Thank you.
There we go.
So I think when you're setting your objectives, they will vary by audience. And if you're a not-for-profit organisation, you may be working with funders, you may be working with volunteers, you might have youth or tamariki participants. You may want to liaise with other similar organisations. So I think what I've seen increasingly in not-for-profits is there's not generally one objective. It'll be objective by the particular need at the time. So participation, volunteers, donors, donor engagement, funder engagement, or empowerment of your community voice, advocacy, which is the possibly one of the most complex communications tasks, because it's fraught with all sorts of risks, but it can be really important if you're trying to achieve something at a local level. For example, I got involved in a community group that was looking to stop a much loved street being turned into essentially a 4-lane highway. And that was complex because trying to get everybody to agree their messages, trying to be sensitive to the needs of the other people involved, etc. So setting our objectives for that was quite complex. So next slide, thanks, Kathryn. I guess most of us have limited capacity, and so working out which channels we're going to work with depends on our own capabilities and what we think will work well with our audiences. So for CSI, for example, we have basically a core audience of about 3,000 people that we contact through our newsletter, and we do an e-newsletter about once a quarter, and that will often alert people to new content on our website that might be of interest to people in the social impact sector. Social media we use a bit, but it's not a major priority for us because our audience tends to be more focused on learning and wanting long-form content. So that tends to be not such a priority, but we do monitor what we're using with Instagram and Facebook quite closely. If you're in a small community, things like flyers and places that you know people go to regularly can be really useful. Ditto calling together wānanga hui or meetings, a lot of work, but quite a good way to find out who else in the community might share your interests, who might be interested in supporting your organisation, or if you're running holiday programs, for example, who might have children who'd be interested in what they're looking for. News media used to be a big focus because the little newspapers, community newspapers, used to be a great source of easy coverage for anybody in the not-for-profit sector. They were always looking for stories. They always wanted local stories. And essentially, they did all the work. You know, you gave them the idea, you gave them somebody that they could talk to, and it was really easy. But so many of those have gone. And so I tend to advise people less focus on news media rather than greater. Thanks, Kathryn. One of the most useful tools that I came across really early in my career, and which I've used often since, is when we were being trained, the whole thing was about, what are your key messages? You know, what do you want to tell people? And so we'd spend ages crafting, you know, the 3 key messages. And then it was a matter of, you know, if it was a large organization, spending a lot of money to get these key messages out. And there wasn't a lot of measurement that happened, and particularly for unpaid communications like public relations and staff communications. So then I came across this, and that second box I found of particular use. The whole idea of it's not what I want to tell them, it's what they want to, what they are interested in. So trying to determine the information that a particular audience is looking for me is now a primary step in terms of trying to shape the key messages, because once I've got a grasp of what the audience might be looking for, then I can tailor the messages according to that. So it kind of inverts that whole process of we start with key messages, then we think about the audience, and then we think about who's going to talk to them and what channels we'll use. Choosing your messenger is quite important. Some people, if it's something that involves any sort of public profile, feel really uncomfortable, like standing up at a hui or giving an interview to somebody. So finding the people in your organization who are capable and interested in being upfront is quite useful. And that might include, for example, we'll look later at one of the inspirational examples is Child Cancer Foundation. But one of the things that organizations like Child Cancer and Cystic Fibrosis do is they work closely with families to identify who are prepared to share their stories. And of course, those stories are really what engage people and make people understand what the organization is doing and why it's important. Channels, I think an increasing focus on social media is something that I recommend now. Trying to get good engagement in social media, it isn't expensive. I don't think you necessarily have to buy space or spend a lot of time agonizing about algorithms. The Internet New Zealand latest survey on New Zealanders' internet habits, the average New Zealander spends 4 hours a day on their computer. And quite often, if they're like me, they'll be popping between Facebook and Instagram, which are both wonderful diversionary tools. And then finally, evaluation, because if you're doing something and you're going to do it again, you want to know how well you've done. So we'll move on to a really brief and simple example. So say you're running a program for rangatahi or tamariki in the holidays, and your audience, your primary audience, might be the parents of potential participants who know very little about you. And so it's thinking about the sort of questions that they might have. Will my child like this? So what are you able to say about past participant experience? Will my child be safe? Information on your organization and how it manages risks, for example. And then you can see that the key messages flow from that. So key messages, this is how our past participants have rated the program. Your messengers, you'll be looking for some participants and program staff. Your channels, you could use a variety of channels, but again, Facebook, Instagram would probably be my first port of call, and website. But if you've got the money to produce something like a handout flyer that you can put in places that you know they're going to be picked up, that's a useful addition. And in terms of feedback, most not-for-profits don't have a lot of money to put into evaluation and feedback, but getting some current participants and parents to give feedback on their experience, that allows you both to refine what you're doing from a program point of view, but also to use their experience to promote what you're doing. I think the how did you find us query is always a really interesting point if you're enrolling people in an organization, because it gives you a sense of where your communications are hitting home. And obviously social media hits and shares and engagement are important. So we'll just move on to, just to give you a quick insight into what's happening with social media. So we've got a fantastic webinar on our website, which we did a couple of years ago with Kirsten Matthew from the agency Mabel Maguire, on using social media. And we were all blown away by these stats that, 82% of the population are using social media and they're spending on average 1.5 hours a day. Most of that is on Facebook. Quite a lot of it's on Instagram. With younger kids, TikTok's increasingly of interest. And if it's an older professional audience, LinkedIn will be important. So we did a quick update or review on, so 23% of men are using Instagram, 39% of women, but 55% of 18 to 29-year-olds. Facebook, 51% are using, of men are using Facebook, 64% of women, and again, 18 to 29 is still quite high. It's still at 53%. So direct your communications to where your people are, and increasingly that's social media. TikTok, just out of interest, the 38% of 18 to 29-year-olds are using it, and it's fantastic, and it's you get lost in TikTok. Next, thanks, Kathryn. So just think about the classic journalism training when you're trying to construct a story. For example, writing a media release, if you do decide to do something for the media, the who, what, when, where, why. Self-explanatory, but it's a really good little checklist for making sure you've got all the key elements of a story, even if you're writing a story for your website or a newsletter. I'm just aware of time, and Kathryn's giving me a look. Next, thanks, Kathryn. One of the best things for me is getting inspiration from seeing people who are doing communications really well. Child Cancer Foundation's website is just a beautiful model of effective communication. And these are just some of the items that come up in the banner that when you land on their homepage. So if you're new to the organization, you're going to get 5 or 6 key elements of their story immediately. And that's backed up by really good newsletter. Obviously, they're a national organization, so they also get media coverage. Time-wise, I'll just skip on to the next one. Another favourite for me is Ngāi Tahu Communications. Now, they've won major Public Relations Institute awards, and you just have to look at their Instagram account to see just how good they are. It's personable, it's informative, it's visual, it's got all the things that you're looking for when you go onto Instagram. Thanks, Kathryn.
Okay.
And there are resources on our website, and we will also put links to some other websites that have really good basic comms planning advice, such as Predator Free NZ and the Communications Collective. So we will be progressively adding to the tools in the toolkit over time to come. And here are some existing ones that we really like.
Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, so these are the resources. If you open the Core Skills Toolkit and go to the comms section, you'll see this page and the links to these resources. So these are actually all on the Te Pūaha website, and they're we've got a webinar that you can watch, a comms and marketing workshop that has been recorded that you can watch online. And there's also a really practical workbook for how to prepare a comms plan. So hopefully you'll find this useful. So I think the important thing to say at this stage is that we're really having a close look at the use of the toolkit. We're monitoring how it's used, and we're really trying to keep our ear to the ground to what's important and any new issues that are emerging. So the toolkits, the topics, the resources, they're going to evolve over time as we hear new themes coming through and what's important. Also, if you do have any resources that you think are really, really great, and you'd like to share with others, please let us know, and we can share them out with the network and our network of groups that attend the talks. So look, a little bit of, we've got some time for questions and answers, and I can't see, if anybody has got a question that they'd like to pop up onto the chat, please do so. In the meantime, look, I've got a question for Robbie, just around, just based on your experience and your work with different groups, about what some of the challenges are that you've found that community groups face when they're communicating their work, and is there any advice you'd offer to overcome these sort of the pitfalls that can unexpectedly come from left field with comms work?
I think the biggest issue is resource. And so that's time, it's skills, and it's finances. And a key thing is finding there will be people with communication skills either in your organization or out in the community who might be prepared to help you. People love to help a good cause. And if you worked in corporate PR as I did, you're always looking for something that is a bit more interesting than corporate life. So, yeah, put your hand up and ask people.
Any other challenges that you've found, but in addition to resources, Robbie?
I think there are obviously complexities for people around, for example, using photographs with younger people, having to ensure that if you want to photograph, for example, a school holiday program, that parents are comfortable with that. And then if you want to use a particular photo of a particular child, getting their sign off, and you will find that there are some resources online which will give you a basic, simple sign off sheet. We do, for example, some videos for Foundation North, and with some of them, we have like a time limit where after 2 years, people don't want to be publicly available anymore, like life moves on. And yeah, so that's always a bit of an issue.
Right.
And obviously crises, when something terrible happens for your organization, having a basic crisis plan in place is really, really important. And again, you'll find some good basic guidance for that on the internet.
Here's an interesting question from the Papakura budgeting service, or a comment that be interesting to get your perspective on, Robbie. They're saying that their biggest challenge over recent times as a small standalone service is having to compete with large multi-million-dollar organisations for funding.
Yeah, and I think in those circumstances, looking for allies. So who is going to be in your community of interest who will trust you and choose you over a fee-paying commercial organisation? So that might be local churches, other local community groups, youth groups, etc. And they could probably be a priority audience when you're doing your communications planning.
Great, thanks, Robbie. We've got another question that's come through, really pertinent to our current times of funding cuts for small groups. So when funding is being reduced and organisations are closing. So do you have any advice for groups who are meeting valid purposes but having their basic funding cut? It's probably a little bit out of the comms, but is there a comms angle that you could take that you could offer for groups who are doing core work and really important work that's meeting the needs of their communities but are having funding cuts?
It's a really hard one. I think, first of all, different funders, I know from our funding guide, have different requirements, and sometimes trying to understand those can be quite challenging, but putting as much effort as you can into what they are looking for and what they are prioritising, and if possible, making some sort of personal contact. I think the other thing is funders tend to be looking generally for impact. If they support you, what's going to be the benefit from that to your community? So having good information on your impact or what your intended impact is would always be central to any communications I was doing with a funder.
Thanks, Robbie. Okay, well, look, I think that we're getting close to wrapping up now. So I'm going to go ahead and just move into the summary and wrap up for the session. So thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for your interest and your questions. So as I mentioned before, this is the second of our 7 workshops that we're going to be offering on the topics that are in the Core Skills Toolkit. So keep your eyes out for these workshops. So we'll be starting to advertise them. And also to let you know that we'll be using the content from these workshops to help build up the content, what's in the Core Skills Toolkit. So that over time, that whole resource is going to expand and get bigger. We'll be adding these sessions. We've got the slides, and we've got, we've already seeing that there's some key issues that are being raised by some of you about what the sector is facing. We're also going to be offering another sort of follow-up to this workshop. We'll be keen to see if you're interested in taking up an offer of a little bit more support, which will be, we're going to offer 5 slots of 30 minutes to have some time with Robbie, or one-on-one time with Robbie, to follow up any particular questions that you have that have come up for you from the session. So at the end of this workshop, we'll be emailing you the recording, the slides, and also this opportunity to have some time with Robbie. There's also a quick Foundation North survey that's in the chat, and on this thank you slide, I see it's popped up there. So if you could just take a minute to fill that in, that would be great. So if anybody has anything else, Robbie or Karinia, before I close.
I just realised the one thing I meant to mention was AI. That the use of AI can make your basic communications development really easy. We had a really interesting experience with Foundation North. We were filming a community organisation that was offering small 1- and 2-person businesses support with their business development, and part of that was going to be, I was going to do a workshop on how to develop a website. And while I was there, we were doing the filming, they put the information about the overall program into AI and asked them to develop a website. And in 10 minutes, they had the basis of something that probably would have taken me 2 weeks to prepare. So it wasn't perfect. It had the sort of AI feel to it. But yeah, ChatGPT has some advantages.
Thanks, Robbie. Karinia? No, okay. Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming in. I'll close now with a closing karakia. Kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuku whakatahi ai, kia turuku whakatahi ai, hui e, pāki e.